Okay, we're good, Chris.
Okay. Do you need me to do a countdown or?
You are good, Mary Claire.
All right. Good evening and welcome to Meet the Candidates Forum presented by the Hudson Area Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Bureau. My name is Mary Claire Olson Potter, president of the Chamber, and it's my pleasure to welcome our candidates and all of you here joining the call. The format tonight will go as follows. The moderator, Chris Kost, will introduce the candidates for mayor and ask them each a series of questions. Then we will move to the candidates running in District 3, followed by those running opposed in Districts 2 and 4. So at this time, please join me in welcoming Chris Kost as the moderator for tonight. He is the Executive Director for the YMCA in Hudson. He also serves on the Chamber Board of Directors and chairs the Chamber's Community Affairs Committee. Please join me in welcoming Chris.
Thanks, Mary Claire. And thanks to all of you that are viewing tonight. There shouldn't be any cancellations due to traffic. So thanks for being here this evening. The format is going to be as follows. This is not a debate. This is just to get to know the candidates. The motto for Hudson is "We Heart Hudson's." What we ask is that our candidates speak from their heart. We do not want to debate back and forth. We just want to have our candidates answer the questions and not call out names or anything else, but just speak from their hearts in regards to the questions that have come up from our surveys as well as our Community Affairs Committee. So the format is as follows. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening comment. I have a set of questions that we'll ask of each candidate, and we will allow for 2-minute responses. These responses must be answered to the question asked. I will move on from you if your answer moves away from the question that's asked. If time permits, we will open it up for questions that are posted in the chat. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for closing at the end of our time together this evening. We have a timekeeper to let you know when your time is up. And what will happen is when there's 30 seconds, Mary Claire will hold up a sign that says 30 seconds. Hold it back a little bit further, Mary Claire. And then you'll hear an alarm go off at your 2 minutes. And we ask that you respect the time limit because we are on a time crunch to get all the questions in with our candidates this evening. The order will be as follows. The candidates for mayor, the candidates for District 3, the candidate for District 2, and the candidate for District 4. We have many topics to cover and request that you follow the format and answer the questions as presented. After the forum, we will send out the questions to each of you and allow you to submit written answers to the questions that will be made available to our members via email and on our website. At this time, I will introduce the candidates running for the mayor of Hudson. The incumbent, Rich O'Connor. Rich O'Connor resides in Hudson with his wife, Cindy. They have 3 children and 4 granddaughters. Rich graduated with a Bachelor's of Arts degree in government from Notre Dame and has utilized the knowledge he gained throughout his career. He spent 12 years serving as a representative of Minnesota in the House of Representatives. Additionally, in 2010, he established his own wealth management company in Hudson. Aside from these accomplishments, Rich has also been an active volunteer in the Hudson community through his involvement with the Hudson Hospital Foundation Board, where he served as the past chair, served as president for the Hudson Area Library Board, and was the vice president for the Hudson Hockey Association in 2016. He was elected as the mayor of Hudson. Liz Malanathy. Liz has lived, wow, it's tough, in Hudson for 23 years. She is married to Maury, and they have 5 kids, Sydney, Max, Clara, Kate, and Owen. Those people are her first and greatest sources of inspiration to help create a better world for all. Upon moving to Hudson, she soon discovered that it was populated with incredible, creative, kind, and helpful people who also envision a better world for all. They have all inspired her. Liz's day job is at EP Rock Elementary teaching math and reading. She has also been involved in creative and collaborative efforts on behalf of the citizens of Hudson, especially young people, since they moved here and have crossed paths with so many of these great people. She is currently on the Hudson Urban Forestry Board, which is her big foray into politics thus far. Those UFB folks make it pretty easy, she says. So before tonight's forum, I've asked each candidate out of respect if I could call them by first names, and they've all agreed. So I will be referring to each by their first name. So we will start with opening comments, and we'll start with Rich.
Thank you, Chris. First, I want to thank the Chamber for organizing and hosting this great event. And I also want to thank the candidates, the other candidates that are here to provide vital information to the citizens of Hudson as they decide who to vote for. I'm Rich O'Connor, Mayor of Hudson. Cindy and I moved our family here back in 1999 because we fell in love with this gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous, romantic river city. We raised our 3 kids here. Jenny Hayes, our oldest, who is also, she's married to Andy Hayes. Richie, who is our middle child, married to Rachel. And Caitlin, who is our youngest, married to Ben Cox. I'm running for re-election, and I'm asking for your vote. But before I get into that, there's something I think that's very important that I wanted to discuss. We owe a great gratitude to the people of the city, to the people that are working for the city of Hudson. And I want to acknowledge and thank them for the work that they have done, especially over the course of the last couple of years. We have been through some very, very 2 tough years. It's been tough on all of us, but it has been tougher on some more than others. But the one constant that rings throughout all this is the uninterrupted delivery of services that our city staff has provided to the people here in the city of Hudson. They have done a great job, a yeoman's job, in making sure that government has been open and accessible to everybody here in the city. Those departments include public safety, which means our police, our fire, our EMS, the people that have kept us safe throughout all this time. They also include public works, our parks department, the city hall staff, our clerks, which have managed through 3 very difficult election cycles throughout COVID, our finance department, our award-winning inspections department, our very dedicated library staff that has been through some public utilities, community development, and last but not least, our city administrator and assistant administrator. These people have been working tirelessly to make sure that the city was still open and accessible throughout this pandemic period. And I think that we owe them a great debt, and I want to express my gratitude to them for the work that they've done over the course of the past 2 years. We will talk about the issues coming up right after. Thanks.
Thank you, Rich. And Liz, your 2 minutes.
Hi, I have my 2-minute egg timer, so hopefully I won't even approach the deadline. I just want to let you know, first of all, you probably heard that I'm married. I have 5 kids. This is my family. They were on the cover of this cute little Hudson Neighbors magazine a while back. They are definitely my greatest inspiration, but when you have kids, you start to realize they're going to populate the world with a whole bunch of other kids, and you know the world is it's their future. So that's kind of what I've been working on while I've been living in Hudson, and I have found that I have an endless enthusiasm and energy and curiosity for human beings in general, and what makes them tick, and what makes them happy, and what makes them hurt, and how to help them collaborate to create a better future. And I think that really fits well with the position of mayor. So I have tons of stuff that I've done in Hudson, and a lot of it's been sort of a creative nature and artistic nature. I've created a lot of different programs with the FIPS, and I've created a lot of different murals, and worked on a lot of efforts, environmental efforts. And I think a lot of people would probably consider me an artist and a teacher. And I know there's been some question about, what is an artist doing running for mayor? And I think the cool thing that I've realized through the arts is that when you're familiar with the creative process, you realize that the creative process can be used to solve many different problems. And we're facing a lot of difficulties. And the creative process involves really opening up to brainstorming and listening to other people's ideas and working through things as you try and fail. So that's, I feel what my background, my past, and what I've been doing has to do with running for mayor. And yes, Rich, I agree with you. We owe a great debt of gratitude to the people that have run this city.
Thank you, Liz. For all of our candidates this evening, we'll have 7 questions, and we will reverse the order of who goes first in those categories where we have multiple candidates. So the first one, and we'll start with Rich. What will be your top 3 priorities if reelected and why?
Well, one of the things that is very important to me is taxation. And I know it's important to everybody here. We're suffering right now from the largest inflation rate increase that we've seen since the 1980s. And that makes it very difficult for people to be able to live by their, within the means that they have, especially people that are on fixed incomes. I want to make sure that we don't lose people here that have to, that can't afford to be in their houses anymore because inflation is going up, which means that we need to keep taxes in line and we need to keep taxes below the cost of living. We've been very successful in doing that since I've been in office, and I will continue to strive to do that. One of the other things that's important to me right now is we're kind of working on it behind the scenes, but I'm sure people have seen that we have the Hudson physicians that are starting to build their new facility over on Carmichael. We are trying to bring a health campus here to Hudson that will bring extensive resources to the people here for healthcare needs. And I think that's going to be a great initiative. Public safety is also at the top of my list, always top priority. And one of the proposals that I have right now is to take the ARPA money coming in, which is essentially the government money for COVID, to light up our city parking lots and to light up some of the darker portions of our downtown area. I want to keep our downtown safe. I want to keep our citizens safe. And that is my number one priority. So those are the things that I want to work on. Lakefront Park has been a vision that I've had for some time, and that is now coming to fruition as well. We've just gotten $650,000 worth of grant money from the state of Wisconsin, DNR, to be able to help with the Lakefront Park. So looking forward to that, that you're going to see come to fruition this summer.
Thank you.
Mary Claire, may I ask, are you holding up like a time limit thing here?
It's 30 seconds.
It's blending in.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, that's very helpful. I just wanted to know what it was. As long as we see the pink, we know it's 30 seconds. I apologize. Sorry.
No, you're right on. You're right on. Liz, same question to you. What will be your top 3 priorities if elected and why?
Okay, so I think the thing that I've been doing right now is just talking to people, doing a lot of listening and learning. And I feel like that is probably my top priority. I need to really be able to talk to the community, talk to the people who've been running the community, and find out what the important things are to our community. And making sure that all voices are heard is very important to me. That just goes along with that listening piece. The library, I know, is something that a lot of people have been talking about, just really finding the solid funding for the library once and for all. That's been an issue since as long as I can remember, and finding a way to make sure it's funded and it stays open, because libraries are really, they're a very American institution, and they really are, they speak to sort of an equality where, anybody can go to the library. It's free to go in there, and it's a really important resource to any community. Transportation is another one I think I've heard people talking about quite a lot, making sure that there's transportation for people who may not have cars or may not have transportation. And that would be everybody, not just the elderly or disabled, but everybody in the city. So, those 3 things, I think listening, and in listening, I've heard about the library, I've heard about transportation, and the environment. Lakefront Park, the river is huge to me too. That's a really important one. So I know there's a lot more out there. I have a lot of listening to do.
Thank you, Liz. Liz, we'll start with you with this next question. And it tails off of the previous question. The chamber has many members, businesses, individuals, organizations. How do your priorities specifically impact Hudson business and tourism?
Well, I think the river is really, the river is the reason our city is here, where it is in the first place. So really protecting that river and taking care of the lakefront I think that brings a lot of people. That is a resource that brings a lot of people to our city. And so that is something that we really want to make sure we emphasize and sort of capitalize on without endangering that scenic riverway. The downtown is amazing to me. There are some people downtown who, you know, when we moved here, they had businesses that were, I would say they took a risk, you know, opening some really cool businesses in a city that wasn't, that didn't have as much going on downtown as it does now. So really continuing to honor the people who've invested their time in those businesses downtown, and still making sure that we are open to new ideas and looking for new ideas and encouraging new ideas. I think we can do both of those at one time. And really looking for, just really looking for some interesting programming, maybe some more festivals, maybe something along the lines of Hot Air Affair, but possibly looking at some winter events. We have the trumpeter swans down by the river that actually bring a lot of people to town. So I think we do kind of center on that downtown area and the river a lot, and that's a good thing to do. But we have a lot of businesses up on the hill that are very positive and important too. So.
Thank you, Liz. Rich, the same question for you. As mayor, you've had a vision that you've shared with the community, but moving forward, if reelected, how do your priorities specifically impact Hudson businesses and tourism moving forward?
Okay, thanks. So first of all, you know, people have heard about my vision for Lakefront Park, and this is something that I have worked on for 6 years. It's something that when I first ran, I had a vision for Lakefront Park that is now finally coming to fruition. We're going to be elevating the boat launch to be able to launch boats even when we're at flood level, which is very important. We've had 3 of the 5 last years. Our boat launch had been closed more than 50% of the time. We lost tournaments, fishing tournaments and things like that, because our access to the river had been closed. So we're going to elevate that. We're going to bring more people in, hopefully get those tournaments back. More importantly, or as importantly, we have what I call the boardwalk, 650 feet of essentially dock that is going to be running from the dike all the way down to the new boat launch. And it was going to allow our citizens to have access to on the water experience as opposed to up above on the wall. But it also means that we're going to be bringing a lot of those boats in from out in the bay. On any given weekend, you see 100 to 200 boats at anchor out there that all have little dinghies, and they want to come into our town, and there's no access. There's no way to get in here. There are a lot of runabouts, people that are camping that want to get in and resupply, that want to get to our local shops as well as our restaurants, and they cannot do that. So again, as I mentioned, we've gotten $650,000 in grant money from the state, $400,000 for the boardwalk, and $250,000 for the boat launch. So that's important. Public safety being a #1 priority is going to help bring tourism in here. People need to feel safe where they go. And we need to make sure, we need to ensure that people feel safe when they come to our town, and that we are known as a very welcoming, safe community that people can come and visit. Taxes, again, as I mentioned, are important, and that means also our businesses. We're trying to keep taxes in line for them as well. Taxes they're a necessity, and they keep our services going. Don't get me wrong, I'm not against taxes, but taxes have got to be raised for the right reasons, and we need to be good stewards of the tax revenue that comes in from the citizens of our community.
And I need to apologize to both candidates. Your questions and your answers are filtering into future questions that we have. So I actually skipped a question, Rich, so I apologize. The next question was in regards to the vision for Hudson. Rich, you do have 2 minutes if you want to elaborate on specifically the impact to Hudson and businesses and tourism, which I gave Liz the opportunity to answer. And then Liz will give you the opportunity for your vision. So I apologize to both Liz and Rich.
Okay. Well, I guess I kind of thought that what I answered had to do with what that meant, what my vision meant for the businesses. But
I'm trying to be fair to you, Rich, by giving you your time.
Okay. So the question then again, I'm sorry, Chris, what?
How do your priorities specifically impact Hudson businesses and tourism?
Well, my priorities, okay, so we're talking about like again, taxes, I kind of talked about that. You said it kind of bled into the questions bled into each other. Taxes are important to businesses as much as they are to homeowners. I think that by bringing the Hudson Health Campus in here to be able to expand our health facilities also brings people into our hotels and into the businesses once they're here. I think that's important. Public safety, again, is a priority, and that is important to make sure that people feel safe when they come into our community. So I think those are all very, very important things. They're my priorities, but they're also part of my vision. And of course, Lakefront Park is a big part of that vision as well. But the health campus, the Hudson Health Campus, is a very big part of my vision. And we want to see that come to fruition. The very beginning of it, of course, is the Hudson Physicians Facility on Carmichael. And we are happy to see that they are staying here in Hudson, as well as that they're building over there on Carmichael. I think it's going to be great for our community. It's going to be great for our businesses and essentially for tourism, because people are going to be coming into town to take advantage of hopefully the health services that are provided, and they will be staying at our hotels, going to our restaurants, going into our businesses and shopping here. So thanks, Chris. I appreciate that.
I apologize again.
No problem.
Liz, your response to the question, what is your vision for the Hudson area?
Well, I think Hudson, tourism is incredibly important. But I think there are a lot of people here who do feel like we want to balance with tourism and yet a city that is still for the citizens and the people who live here. I know there are cities up and down the river that are have kind of turned into summer towns where the citizens themselves don't even really venture out during the summer. So I think we have a challenge in Hudson to make sure we keep that balance and invite tourists and welcome tourists, but also make sure that our own citizens still can park and go downtown and enjoy being downtown. We have so many great businesses downtown right now, and they seem to some of them kind of come and go. And I think when we look at the businesses that are coming in, we should pay attention to what the people in this community are looking for or want or respond well to. And when we look up on the hill, we have a lot of great businesses up there, but there are some empty storefronts up there too. So we want to make sure we're not, I think, extending too much, building too much, and then letting those stores sit empty. So, and Lakefront Park is really a jewel. It's really a beautiful place. I love the idea, Rich. I love the idea of the boardwalk and boats coming in and fishing tournaments. But I think there's some work that needs to be done down there environmentally, just to make sure that when the floods come in and the areas in the floodplain should be planted with things that will accept that water, take that water, and rain gardens and things like that too, to keep that lakefront beautiful and viable for our tourists and our citizens.
Thank you, Liz. The next questions are going to get a little more deeper into our community and our city. Liz, the first question, first response is for you. Infrastructure in Hudson is in critical condition and required improvements are not fiscally possible with the current budget. Please explain how this happened, what strategies you would implement if elected, besides raising taxes to alleviate the current crisis, and how would you ensure we do not find ourselves in the same situation in the future?
Well, it's interesting that you asked me how it happened. I'm assuming, and I think that it probably happens because repairs are put off and maybe they can't be paid for, or it's not in the budget for the year. And so, you see a lot around our city of sort of patchwork on the streets. And when there's an area that's kind of eroding, sometimes we just pile stone on it or gravel. And I think that in the long run probably isn't the best solution. And I understand the funding maybe hasn't been there. So I think we've gotten to a point where suddenly there are a lot of upgrades that need to happen, and it's probably going to cost a lot of money. And there may be, I think what would be really important is to look for state and federal funding. I think there may be some infrastructure funding that we can, seek out, search out. And I think when we look at our cities and our infrastructure, bridges, storm sewers, there are a lot of cities that are doing some really interesting things that we should be exploring. And one of the things I've seen that I find really interesting is capturing stormwater runoff, capturing it and then using it for irrigation. And things like that are, people are doing some really creative things. And I think to search for some of those long-term solutions, pavement that is maybe more permeable and lasts longer. There's a lot of technology that would serve us well to look into and look at as we're having to rebuild these roads and repave them and streets and gutters and all of that. So I think a little creativity, I think not just forging ahead the way that we've always done it. And we need to kind of quit patching things up and really take a look at how to do it right.
Thank you, Liz. Rich, same question to you. It's a lengthy question. Would you like me to repeat it for you?
Yeah, please.
Infrastructure in Hudson is in critical condition and required improvements are not fiscally possible with the current budget. Please explain how this happened. What strategies would you implement besides raising taxes to alleviate the current crisis? And how would you ensure we do not find ourselves in the same situation in the future?
Okay, so it's like a three-pronged question. First of all, I would say that it happened because it was the needs were neglected. There's no doubt. I don't know exactly to what extent the needs had been expressed to our previous councils, but clearly with our new engineer here, he took this as a project and did a great job in finding out what our needs are at this point. I think it's a big wish list. I think the $120 million price tag on it is I think it's larger than what our need actually is. I think it's more of a wish list, but still, needless to say, even if it's half that, we're talking $60 million or more. But the problem is it was put off, and maybe we just didn't analyze it. The previous councils and departments didn't analyze it sufficiently to be able to let the council know what the need was. So what do we do about it without raising taxes? I mean, the only way you pay for this is generally through taxes. But we find, especially now with Hudson being such a destination for people, that a lot of the deterioration has to do with people that are coming into our city that don't live here. And so should they be paying for part of this? I would say, yeah, absolutely. So you've probably heard about the transportation utility that has been proposed. That's put on hold because the state legislature is now looking at transportation utilities and saying that they probably aren't going to allow them to happen. And a transportation utility would essentially be charging businesses for their parking lots and the capacity that they have with the people that are visiting their stores. So what's the solution? I mean, we need to start taking piecemeal going forward. What is our priority right now for this year, for the next 3 years, for the next 5 years, and apportion that out and try to get the public, the other our tourists and people like that are coming in here to help pay for the essential the repairs that need to be done on our infrastructure.
Thank you, Rich. Next question, we'll start with you, Rich. Every year, the chamber sends out a survey to our chamber members. This year, we had a number of incredible responses from our chamber members. Divisiveness was one of the top answers to what issues are our community facing. How do you propose to tackle that issue moving forward?
Hopefully people have seen the Golden Rule Initiative. It's a start. And when I was a kid, we were taught the Golden Rule in first grade, second grade, third grade. We had rulers that had the Golden Rule on those rulers. And we had to recite the Golden Rule. We had to know what it was to treat each other with respect. And that meant including not bullying people, but also tolerating people's different viewpoints. And I think that's very important. You've probably heard me talk about this divisiveness as well, the incivility that is creeping into our discussions, our everyday discussions, our public discourse, and it needs to stop. And what we need to do is start recognizing that we can disagree without hating one another. That's how we got to where we're at in our society. With, you think of any major development, any major decision was brought about by compromise, and compromise meant that there were differing points of view that had to be listened to and then worked on. And we seem to be devoid of that today. If you don't agree with me, I don't listen to you. I don't have, that's people's attitude. If you don't agree with me, then you've got nothing to say to me. And we've got to stop that attitude. And we really need to listen to people. We need to diligently listen to what our friends, our family members have to say. I've seen too many marriages literally fall apart because they can't talk to one another. I've seen lifelong friendships, people that I've known that have known each other for 60 years that won't talk to each other anymore, mostly because of the political backdrop. And that's got to stop. And that's why I started the Golden Rule Initiative. Honestly, the biggest regret I have right now is not starting that initiative a long time ago.
Thank you, Rich. Liz, would you like for me to repeat the question for you?
Oh, no, I don't think so. I think I
Okay.
got it. Rich, I also wish that you would have started that Golden Rule Initiative a long time ago, because I have a couple kids who grew up here who didn't really fit in, and the city wasn't super welcoming to them, and they kind of look at it now and think, man, that was a little too little, a little too late. And I love the Golden Rule, but I do think it's slightly myopic. I think we tend to look at do unto others as I would have them do unto me. So it tends to make you focus back on yourself. And that's kind of I think I agree with you. That's sort of the problem that we have right now, is a focus on ourselves. And I guess I do think that, one of the reasons I'm running is because we have a whole generation of young people coming up who are just horrified by the politics that they see and the division that they see. And it's not just about tolerating other people's viewpoints. This divisiveness is because we're not seeking out people who are different than we are. We're not seeking out different opinions. We're really set in our ways, and we're really settled where we are, and we need to really become active in getting to know the people that are around us, the other viewpoints, the other experiences, the other perspectives. And I think right now there's kind of a black hole of leadership with a lot of our politicians, and it's kind of, sometimes I worry it's just going to suck the good nature of the city right down into it, because it's been one thing after another. So I think I agree, divisiveness is probably the number one issue for almost everybody in the city, not just the chamber, not just the businesses. And that is something that I feel passionately about trying to change, trying to help, trying to remedy. So
Thank you, Liz. Next question, we will start with you. According to our 2021 Chamber survey, two of the issues facing our businesses is housing and transportation. If elected, what will you do to support the community and businesses in these areas?
Was that for me?
That's for you, Liz. Yes.
Yeah, I think the first thing that I'd have to do for sure is really just take the time to talk to people, businesses, the chamber. I do have a lot to learn. I think I'm a huge public transportation person. I think the idea of a train, light rail from Eau Claire and maybe all the way through the state of Wisconsin up through this area is really interesting. I'd like to know more about that. I think busing and public transportation for people to get from up on the hill to downtown, from downtown to up on the hill, and where they need to go. And honestly, if we have young people who want to get somewhere who can't drive and they want to go downtown and shop, they should have a means to do it. It would be awesome to see some buses running in Hudson. So I think I would definitely need to have that conversation about the public transportation, for sure, with the businesses. I can't pretend that I know everything. I'm coming into this needing to learn a lot. So that would be my number one priority.
And what about in housing, for housing?
Oh, and housing. Oh my gosh, housing is huge. I mean, we have people who work in our city who can't afford to live in our city. And it's really probably one of the top issues, one of the most important issues right now. We need to have mid-level housing. We need to have workforce housing. And I know Wisconsin has a bipartisan effort right now and a push toward workforce housing. So that's something that's really promising to me. I think we can definitely, work with our state on that and make sure that we have places for everybody to live here.
Thank you. Rich, back to you. Would you like the question read to you again?
No, I think I got it. Thanks.
Okay.
So start with transportation. Obviously, it's been stated we have needs here. There's no doubt about it. It's a question, how do we afford this, and how extensive is the actual need? So one of the things I've been working on for 3 years is transportation for seniors and disabled. And perhaps our transportation needs are greater than that, but we're hoping to have a system in place here by this fall that will provide transportation within our city for our residents, our disabled and our senior residents, to get them to and from the places that they need to get to, whether for specific needs, whether it's for shopping or to get to the drugstore, whatever, to the doctor for doctor's appointments, but also to get them to enjoy some of the other amenities that we have in the city, to get them moving from downtown up to the hill or from the hill to downtown. That's important. And it's a start. Okay. It's a start. And part of this has to do with what can we afford. And, we're not that far away from levy limits right now. The original budget we had proposed for this year was about a 14% increase, and that would have put us $500,000 over our levy limits. We ratcheted that down to about 2.8%, but we're still nearing levy limits, and we have to be cognizant of that with anything that we do. As far as housing is concerned, it's something that we've been working on for some time. And the good news is, and if for anybody that was paying attention, actually for those people who weren't, we have a nice little housing development that's going to happen downtown with the old scuba shop there, and going north, those few buildings that have been vacant for a while on Commercial Street and Second. And that's going to be 32 units of much needed downtown housing, and that's going to be workforce housing. There's also some developments proposed out along Stage Line, that area, that might provide workforce housing for us. These are contentious issues also. So, more to come on all this, and we'll see what happens.
Thank you. We've reached the last question for our mayoral candidates. This one is a little tricky, so bear with me as I read it. The following is the current policy regarding public comments at common council meetings. Public comments will not be taken during the council meeting on any agenda item that is not listed under comments or as a public hearing. If you have comments on an agenda item, please contact your council representative and or the mayor to provide your input prior to the meeting. Council contact information can be found here at www.hudson.wi.gov, or you may email the mayor or all council members here, mayoral and council at hudsonwisconsin.gov, or you can call 715-386-4765. Do you embrace this policy, and why, is the first part. And the second part is, how do you propose this policy allows for adequate and fair discourse on issues impacting the community, especially for those business owners that do not live in Hudson?
Who's first?
This is for you, Rich.
Oh, okay. All right. So, boy, that was a lot. That was a mouthful, Chris. So the policy has evolved for, there's obviously some back history on this. Anybody that has watched me since the time I got in office, I allowed citizen comments until people were done talking. And that meant back in the EMS debate that we had going on, it was 2 to 3 hours of citizen comments. And the same thing was true for some of the other things that were happening. Masking was part of it as well. And the policy that we have right now was essentially developed because of council members that were saying, we've got things that needed to be done here, and this is just taking up too much time. Isn't there a better way to do this? So I think that the council members here would easily tell you that I have always been a proponent of allowing people to speak, allowing people to talk. What do we do? Well, first of all, citizen comments is not a guaranteed thing. It's something that it's not a rule that's written in that it's mandatory that we have to allow them. There are many communities that do not allow citizen comments. We still allow them. But it's a recognition that there is work that needs to be done at every city council meeting. There are people that come in there that have a need for getting things done, and they need to be heard, and they need to have their issues resolved at the council. And those people have been put on hold while we've allowed citizen comments to go on for as long as people wanted to talk. And in some instances, it meant that we stopped the council meetings late at night, and these people did not, even though they were on the agenda, they did not have an opportunity to get their work done at the council meeting. And in some cases, it cost people money because they had attorneys in there. So we could also put citizen comments at the very end of the agenda and let people talk after the business of the council is done, then let people talk. It's something that we have been talking about a little bit. Maybe we would do that. But anyway, it's an interesting topic, and I've always enjoyed allowing people to say their piece. And I think anybody knows that even when they come after me, I allow that to happen.
Thank you. Liz, the two questions: do you embrace this policy and why? And second, how do you propose this policy allows for adequate and fair discourse on issues impacting the community, even those that own businesses in Hudson but may not live in Hudson?
Well, it seems like it might not provide for adequate and fair discourse if it's, if people aren't allowed to speak. I do think, there's a mechanism in place for people to communicate with their alderpersons and with the mayor about their thoughts and ideas, but I'm not sure that's always effective. I think sometimes people try that, but they don't get an answer. Or, maybe they get an answer, but they don't get a conversation. And I think if people had, were able to have a conversation with the mayor, whether it was email or, phone or some other means of conversing with the mayor and their alderpersons, they might feel more like they had a voice. Of course, when people feel passionate, they're going to want to come and speak about it at a meeting. And I do understand that the meetings can't go on for hours and hours, but, maybe that public discourse, maybe that those, people standing up and speaking passionately was sort of a symptom of another problem or a deeper problem, which was that, many people didn't feel like their voices were being heard in their community. And so maybe that's something we need to think about. We might not have 15 people standing in line to speak at a meeting if they were heard ahead of time, or if we had conversations, more community conversations about issues that meant a lot to people. Because, when people feel passionate about something, they definitely want to be heard. So that's my thought on that. And I think we do need to, as council members and as the mayor, we need to really let our citizens know that we are hearing their ideas and respond to them, maybe do a better job than we're doing right now.
Thank you. Rich and Liz, thank you for letting us get to know you a little bit during these past few minutes. Please stay on the call for if we have time at the end of this call for questions, if time allows. At this time, I'd like to introduce the candidates running for District 3. Incumbent, Paul DeZiel. Paul has lived in the Hudson community for 20 years and loves our community. He's married to Tiffany and has 4 children who attend Hudson Public Schools. He completed an undergraduate degree in secondary education, social studies at the University of Minnesota, and a master's degree in religious education at the University of St. Thomas. Paul serves as a high school theology teacher and campus minister at Hill Murray School, and is a part-time youth coordinator at Guardian Angels Church. He has volunteered in our community to minister to the inmates at St. Croix County Jail and coach both youth softball and soccer teams. He was elected to the Hudson City Council in 2018 and has served on the Park Board and the Public Works Committee, as well as a liaison to the Hudson School Board and the Diversity Committee. During free time, he enjoys reading, walking, watching sports or movies, and playing with his children outdoors or at the Y. Sorry, shameless plug. Joy Knutson. Joy Knutson has been a Hudson resident for over 30 years. She has been a small business owner and local veterinarian, always active in the community. Joy has served on the YMCA Board of Directors, another shameless plug, assisted in fundraising efforts at the Y, FIP Center for the Arts, and the United Way campaign. She has volunteered in our local schools as well as chairing the HHA Hudson High School senior graduation party. Please welcome both Paul and Joy. We will start with Paul. Please give us a 2-minute opening statement.
Thank you. My name is Mayor Claire and the Chamber of Commerce sponsoring tonight's forum. I think it's an important opportunity for folks in the community to get to know our candidates. I know the business community has been through a very difficult past 2 years. I'm super grateful for the work the Chamber does supporting our business community. I'm super grateful for what our business community does and providing so many services to our people. For me, it's been a privilege to represent the people of District 3 for the past 4 years. For those of you who don't know me, I just want to start out by saying that I'm a person of faith and I'm a person of integrity. My faith has always been central to who I am, and it's really why I got involved in the public realm in the first place. My leadership style, I would say, is based on listening, affirming, and serving others. I'd like to try to aspire to be what I call a servant leader, if you're familiar with that term. I have worked to create a stronger community in Hudson where families can thrive and everyone feels welcome. And my approach to governing is really rooted in, again, those faith-based values, as well as forward thinking and respectful dialogue. If elected to a third term, I have a lot of priorities in terms of infrastructure and looking at the library and some other things, but it looks like we'll have some time to get into more of the details as we go with that. So I also do want to tip my hat to my challenger, Joy Knutson. I think it's wonderful she's running. I think it's wonderful that the people of District 3 have a choice. I think that it's very hard to run a campaign in the dead of winter. So I'm commending her for her efforts of getting out and getting to know people. So thank you, Joy. I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Joy, 2 minutes for your opening comments.
Here, there we go. Thank you. Yes, I'm Joy Knutson. I'm running for City Council. I'd like to represent my neighbors in the 3rd District. I have lived actually in the same home in this district for 30 years. So I definitely know the needs and the concerns of my neighbors quite well. Hudson's a wonderful town. There's so many unique qualities. I want to be a part of welcoming all people to our community. I remember what it felt like as to be a newcomer in a small town, and I want to help foster a sense of belonging for everyone. One of my key thoughts as I run for City Council is that we need to focus on the things that we all have in common, rather than focusing on our differences. I want to see Hudson continue to thrive as a great place to live and work. I've been involved in many aspects of civic life, some of which Chris listed. I always said I don't mind raising money for things that I believe in. So I was also often tapped on the shoulder, as a business owner, to help raise money for some of these vital nonprofits in our town. That's part of what makes Hudson so special. Things like the FIP Center for the Arts and the YMCA and the other programming that really was built from the ground up by people that were volunteers. When I saw that happening around me, I wanted to be a part of it. And so I put in time and effort for those things. I also was very involved in areas involving our children. We have 2 adult children now. They're both in their 30s, and they went through Hudson schools. So I'm a mom, get involved. I volunteered in those schools extensively, tutoring students, teaching junior achievement. I also mentored STEM students at the Hudson High School. So I've also been an active member of my church, and I played a vital role in developing the school that's now known as Trinity Academy. When my husband Dean and I first came to town, we started a veterinary practice. And so as a business owner, I do think I bring a perspective to the City Council that will help to understand our businesses and chamber members. I was an active chamber member when we owned a business in town. And we certainly have enjoyed all the things about Hudson. I'm committed to a respectful dialogue, but I will not shy away from lively debate.
Thank you, Joy. The first question tonight, we'll start with Paul. What will be your top 3 priorities if reelected and why?
Good question. So if I'm elected to a 3rd term, my first priority is to improve roads using the $1.5 million we will receive from the American Rescue Plan. That's the federal money we're getting. This is because our city engineer has done a study and has shown that our road quality is decreasing in Hudson. So we actually need to invest now just to maintain our roads. The big picture is that the city engineer has a 30-year plan, which would cost something like over $100 million. It's not realistic, but we need to do something. My second priority is to widen the 11th Street Bridge to create better traffic flow. As we grow as a community, our traffic is going to increase, and it's already backing up on the 11th Street Bridge. And then the second reason we need to do it is that WISDOT owns the Carmichael Bridge as well, and they are planning on doing a revamp of that bridge in the near future. We don't know the exact year, but we don't want to have both bridges being built at the same time, so I want to make sure we get ahead of it. My third priority is to stabilize library funding. I'd actually like to remove it from the city tax roll and have that tax levied by St. Croix County. I think that makes sense because it would make funding more equitable with our other municipal partners that contribute to that. And I think it would just make the library more stable in the future. And if I can sneak 2 in, I'd love to get a splash pad at the YMCA or the White Camp Park. And also I'd like to look at more affordable housing, I call it, but people are calling workforce housing tonight. Because I think that it's just fundamentally unfair when police officers and teachers who work in town can't afford to live in town. I just think we have to remedy that situation. And I'm glad we do have some things possibly coming and in the near future on that. So.
Thank you, Paul. Joy, same question.
Thank you. Well, my top priority is thinking about public safety, and I'm going to break that down in a couple of categories. One certainly is supporting our police department. I think we have an excellent department led by a very qualified and capable police chief. And I understand that the staffing he feels is adequate at this time, but I think we need to keep an eye on that. While Hudson is a small town, we do not have a small footprint, and we certainly draw many people to our community. And so that means there's a lot of action. When we go to bed at night, there's lots of other things still going on where people are drawn to our entertainment and bars and restaurants, et cetera. And I want to make sure that our department is not stretched too thin. I also really want to support them in training. I have to compliment our police chief in making certain that all of our officers have been trained in crisis intervention, and that's important. So many people are struggling with mental health issues, and crisis intervention training prepares our officers to recognize and deal with a individual that might actually be struggling quite a bit with a mental health challenge, and they're not cooperating with law enforcement, but they're not a threat. And so that's been important, and I'd like to continue to keep an eye open for that, for further training and equipment. Another important part of public safety really for me is traffic patterns. District 3 has a number of through streets or trunk roads from Carmichael to 17th, 11th Street. Our southern border is Cooley, our northern border is Vine Street. Those are all through streets. And so as our town grows or just more people come to visit, we need to really keep an eye on traffic patterns and safety. They have a number of people mentioned to me they're concerned about their children walking to school, EP Rock, et cetera. And I know the city has attempted to address that before, but I think we need to keep our eyes open to help those families and children feel safe. Parks are certainly part of infrastructure, and I'd like to be a part of advancing and enhancing the parks of our city. And I'm interested in, of course, we've talked about the Lakefront Park and the planned changes right now and improvements, but I'm also interested in looking into further development to the north, the proposed idea of joining bike paths and so on up towards Lake Mayoral and North Hudson. My third priority, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Joy. We'll lead right into you, Joy, to answer this question. How do your priorities specifically impact Hudson businesses and tourism?
Okay, thank you. Well, my third priority, which I'll probably mention several times, is controlling spending, watching our tax dollars closely. I know that there are grants that are potentially available for some big projects, and I agree we should apply for them. And we should make plans. Right now, we're working hard, our city engineer and other staff are working hard to get a plan for improving the 11th Street or Hagen Street Bridge, which crosses south towards the post office. But the funding isn't in place yet. So we need to keep an eye. We need to do our best planning, but also watch for where that funding is available, because our tax dollars can only go so far. And of course, we think of individual homeowners with taxes, but our business owners pay taxes as well. And so that has an impact on them. I do feel that they bring a great advantage to our city with places to eat, shop, and work. And so we need to partner with them. And again, as a prior business owner, I understand that concept. And I definitely want to keep that in mind, that we don't just look at our businesses as paying the bill. We want to help make them feel like they're appreciated and a part of our community. And I do think working on the traffic flow and pattern throughout the city also will help them as their shoppers, customers, and staff and employees might come and go to work. So those are how my priorities would help the chamber members.
Thank you. Same question, you, Paul. Do you need me to repeat it, or are you good?
I think I'm good. Well, infrastructure is vital for business. I mean, if people can't drive, if they don't have good roads to drive on and ways to get to your business, they're not going to frequent your business. So, looking at expanding certain roads like Carmichael, as we get more and more traffic on that. Certainly the mayor was mentioning the medical clinic sort of going in there, and with the Bella Rosa development as well. We just need to do some work on that. Also, sewers. I don't know if you guys know this, but downtown, many of those sewers in the downtown district, they're over 120 years old. So I'm not saying they're going to fail tomorrow, but there needs to be some serious work, because block by block in that old downtown, we have sewer issues. And so unless we deal with that, those businesses are kind of living on borrowed time in a sense. We're going to have to support them with that. Another thing that I didn't mention as a priority, but it's something I'm very proud of and it's very important to me, is the new Hudson Diversity Committee. I worked really hard on the draft proposal for that and getting that passed. And I actually think it's probably one of the #1 things for tourism, because if people in the Twin Cities of all cultures and ethnicities realize that Hudson's a welcoming place, we're going to get a lot more business. So the more we get the word out, we're welcoming, everyone's welcome here. This is a safe community. We need to do that work, and that committee is going to take the leadership in doing that. But I think that is going to really be a boon to our businesses throughout the city.
Thank you. The next question, we'll start with you, Paul. What is your vision for the Hudson area?
Well, my vision is maybe a little more people-oriented than what we've heard tonight. I envision a community where people work together. I envision the community that we saw after the September storm. If you remember the huge September storm that came through and did the damage to the library and the boathouse or whatnot on the beach house, people came together. People were the very next morning walking around, picking up glass, picking up things in the street. We had folks calling for help and getting tree companies in here. Hudson needs to work together. It's unfortunate that it took a freakish storm of nature to get that, but that's what we should have. Even with COVID, we've seen COVID has been a political rift in our community. It should have brought us together. We should have said, we're going to work together to fight a common virus. And we should be still saying that. And we need to say, we need to be in this together with the school district, working to, educate our kids. We need to be working with law enforcement and firefighters to make sure they have equipment. We need to be in this together, Hudson. And it's unfortunate that the political divisiveness has just found a home. And I'm just not sure how to deal with that effectively, but I'm trying to do my part.
Thank you. Same question to you, Joy.
Thank you. And I want to reflect back to Paul that I do appreciate his positive approach. We talked early on, maybe December or early part of January, about how that we wanted to have a positive campaign. to bring our ideas forward, but to do it in a way that, we're not personal. And so I think, it's always challenging to run for a position and have different ideas and you live in the same town. We are neighbors. And I absolutely agree with what you're saying, Paul, of pulling together and our vision. I do think the vision that we need to focus on, certainly, yes, people and welcoming and having people be aware of what's available in town. I mentioned earlier about being a newcomer myself and how do you meet people and how do you get engaged and find those organizations. And I think that adds to quality of life for our business owners if their employees are happy here. They come here and they find fun things to do and people that they meet. But I do think our vision needs to focus on the use of the remaining land that we have in the city, the plots that are available that could be developed. And I do also want to join in Rich O'Connor and others' comments about what a great professional staff we have that are working at City Hall on our behalf, talking with developers, choosing the projects. I mean, we have the choice of the projects that come in to our town, and because there are so many people that are drawn to Hudson because of what we're already doing here. So we need to continue that positive focus. I would like to work towards having more information in advance for people. It's human nature that you don't notice something until it's happening, like, oh, this road is closed this week. Okay, the sign was up for a month, but you didn't notice it till the day that it slowed you down. Well, people need to know about these changes and developments. And so, for example, there is a public hearing next week for the Hagen Street Bridge that will be at City Council Monday evening at 7 p.m. And so that's an important thing. We need to make sure those messages get out. And I think we have a really well-run website for the city, but we could enhance that further and maybe more social media to let people know as well those changes so they can participate in those decisions as we develop those plots of land that are still adjacent to our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. The next question, we will start with you, Joy, and then have Paul follow up. Infrastructure in Hudson is in a critical condition and required improvements are not fiscally possible with the current budget. Please explain how this happened, what strategies you would implement besides raising taxes to alleviate the current crisis, and how would you ensure we do not find ourselves in the same situation in the future?
Sure. Well, how it happened is certainly there's probably a variety of reasons. As Mayor O'Connor mentioned, we do have a full-time city engineer now who one of his first tasks that he undertook was to evaluate and use a grading system to evaluate our infrastructure and felt things were lacking. And he's the one that's worked to put a price tag on what he thinks it might take. And certainly with the rising inflation, the costs could be even higher than have already been mentioned. It's hard to know, and we're obviously going to have to approach it step by step. I do think it's possible that not enough attention was made to infrastructure under the surface of the street. We can all see the streets as we're driving, but to understand the state of the sewers and things like that, especially in our older residential area in downtown. Of course, last summer, very big project, had a big impact on people. Thankfully, it's behind us with the 2nd Street reconstruction there. That was much needed. How are we going to pay for it? That is definitely a challenge. You'll hear me say that tonight, that my concern is about tax dollars and spending those monies wisely. And again, I also want to respect that the businesses have a bottom line to make, and it's not easy for them just to write out a check and pay more in taxes also. I know that there has been a discussion about wheel taxes, which would be spread across all the residents. And I think that, again, back to the idea of a public hearing, there's already been at least one held. We need to talk to our residents about that idea. Are you willing to pay a wheel tax to help defer some of that cost? Even then, we need even more money than that. And again, I do agree that seeking outside grants, if they are available, is going to be appropriate. But we need to proceed in a wise manner, improving sewers and streets at the same time, working with our public utility simultaneously, so we really spend our money wisely. Thank you.
Paul, same question.
Can you repeat it for me, sir?
Sure. Infrastructure in Hudson is in a critical condition and required improvements are not fiscally possible with the current budget. Please explain how this happened, what strategies you would implement besides raising taxes to alleviate the current crisis, and how would you ensure we do not find ourselves in the same situation in the future?
Well, I've only been on council for 4 years, but I'm aware that the state of Wisconsin has levy limits for cities. And so I would say how it happened was that the state legislature took away the local authority of municipalities to take care of their needs by putting on levy limits. So it's unfortunate, but we've been handcuffed from the state legislature. So that's difficult. It puts us really behind the 8 ball when we need funds to do roads, and we don't have the funds because we can't raise them due to the levy limits. We need to be creative. I think that we're getting $1.5 million right now from the federal infrastructure bill. And I would like to put the majority of that into roads. I've been talking door to door with people about that. I brought that up on city council a few times as well. I think there are also grants, and I know we have applied for grants from the state of Wisconsin. There's various categories of grants, some for main arteries, some for side roads and whatnot. And our city engineer and our public works director have done a fantastic job of applying for grants. So we have approved that application process. Again, we don't know exactly when we'll receive that. The wheel tax is a possibility. I know that certain counties and municipalities do that. The wheel tax is cheap. It's $20 a year. It's like paying your tabs on your car. I realize we need to be fiscally responsible, and I feel like I have been fiscally responsible. But at the same time, I think we need to understand there's a common good here. And sometimes the common good requires sacrifice. And if we really want to be serious about roads, we're going to have to sacrifice at some point.
Thank you. Paul, we'll start with you on this question. Divisiveness was one of the top answers to what issues are our community facing in our annual chamber survey. How do you propose to tackle that issue?
And do you mean in regard to the entire community, or is this in respect to a certain aspect?
Our survey was sent to all of our chamber members,
Yep.
and it was one of the top issues facing our businesses and members.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we've had national leadership that's been divisive, and the bar for public discourse has been lowered in our country so far. It doesn't exist anymore. We as local leaders need to step up and be respectful. We need to know how to have public discourse, be passionate, but don't take things personally. We need to be able to put our views out there, and at the same time, listen. So I feel that I've been doing that on city council for 4 years. If you've looked at my record, if you've looked at any of the tapes I've been on, I've been trying to model that for 4 years. I can't control other people in the community. I can only put my money where my mouth is. And so anybody I've talked to door, anybody who's emailed me and I've emailed them back, anybody who's called me in the community, that's who I am. I give them respect and I try to do the right thing. And that's what we need to do across the board. But it's going to take time because our country is damaged and we need healing. And I think cable TV is not helping, right? We need to bring people together instead of putting them to sort of these partisan extremes. And that takes leadership.
Thank you, Paul. Joy, same question.
Thank you. Well, divisiveness is very much a concern for me. The tone of some of the situations, public situations at the city council have bothered a lot of people. And that, we want to be respectful. We can have differences of opinion, but let's listen and be respectful as we take in those opinions and respond. And I do agree that the time of the last 2 years when everyone's life was upended and changes have happened, whether they wanted them or not, they lost their job, they couldn't work, they had to have, teaching their children at the kitchen table, all the things that people have had to adjust with have caused stress and strife. But I do think we need to, this does reflect somewhat on the comment question. I guess we're going to talk about that later, but that's important that we set that tone at the city council of how the comments are handled. I do think that some of the challenges that city council has faced is I believe they are taking up issues that are not really their primary focus. That's something that I feel that the priorities really are public safety, police, fire, streets, repairing our infrastructure, maintaining a park system. That's what really the city council is for. And I believe that, I'm sure well-intentioned, other things have been brought forward that not everyone concurs with. And so then people come forward with their opinions. And yes, unfortunately, people lose their temper, say inappropriate things. I want to always be respectful, and I don't think there's any place where we would want to say inappropriate things to each other as council members or to any of our residents. But we also need to be able to be strong enough to curtail it if that's happening at the meeting, that the public is bringing that forward. So we do need to be able to do that. And I hope to work forward to that. As a veterinarian, my job was to listen to people. And I've definitely developed that skill. And I think I would serve well on the council by being a good listener.
Thanks, Joy. Next question, we'll start with you, Joy. According to the 2021 Chamber Survey, 2 of the issues facing our businesses is housing and transportation. If elected, what will you do to support the community in these areas?
Okay, thank you. Well, I'll talk about transportation first. I would like to see a study in numbers about the viability of busing. I absolutely agree, and we do already have some resources in the community, and the city is developing more that can assist our senior citizens and those who have a disability that need assistance to a doctor's appointment or things like that. But I would like to see, I mean, I have yet to really be shown and appreciate that there is enough demand to meet enough demand for transportation, a bus running through town to make it affordable. I mean, again, we need to spend our money carefully. We are a kind of a commuting town. A lot of people are fortunate enough to live in town here, but others commute. And so people do have cars, they have automobiles. And I think one of the important parts about transportation is making sure we do have safe interchanges, wide enough lanes. Talked about Carmichael. I understand that is going to eventually be expanded to 2 lanes each way, north and south there, and a stoplight, some speed control there would help, because I think safety in transportation is key. And I would be open to considering the public transportation if I saw the numbers that would justify it. Regarding the housing, I definitely, the term workforce housing and affordable housing, people use different terms. I'd like to see them defined a little more, because what's affordable to one person is not to another necessarily. The city government, again, we need to look at what their role is. We don't set rates for private or single family homes, what they are valued at or sold for or rented for. So we need to approach that carefully. We actually have a great deal of rental available in Hudson. The most recent census shows that 60% of our residents live in single family homes and 40% live in a rental, or they don't. 60% are property owners and 40% are renters. So I do think continuing to evaluate that and using our parcels of land carefully as we develop more housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. Paul, same questions.
So housing and
Transportation and how it affects our business community.
Well, I think it affects your business community if your employees can't work in town. I think if you've got to live in Minnesota to find affordable housing and then drive out to Hudson for your job, I think that you lose employees. I think you lose especially young people. So I think that's a difficult thing. Affordable housing, just for a definition wise, it's defined as 30% of your income not more than 30% of your income is in your mortgage, basically. So affordable housing is always relative to somebody's income. So yeah, we need to do more in that area. You know, there's also private groups like Common Bond that's in the Twin Cities that does affordable housing units. I think we need to talk and be more aggressive with developers who are looking to put in multi-unit places to make sure that we have some affordable housing. So that's the housing piece. I think it's important. As far as the transportation, again, I think one of the things we're looking at is vans. New Richmond does vans and River Falls does van services. And I know the mayor's been working on as well, taxi services. I think busing maybe, but I just feel like that's a big ask, again, given our size of our city budget. I just don't know if that's going to be feasible. But I think the private van piece that we've been working on, I think could be a great solution for Hudson to sort of get people around town.
Thank you. Last question for Paul and Joy, and this is the lengthy one. And Paul, we will start with you. The following is the current policy regarding public comments at common council meetings. Public comments will not be taken during the council meeting on any agenda item that is not listed under comments or as public hearing. If you have comments on an agenda item, please contact your council representative and or the mayor to provide your input prior to the meeting. I won't go through all the contact information for the sake of time. Do you embrace this policy and why? And second part, how do you propose this policy allows for adequate and fair discourse on issues impacting our community?
Let me just say it's been a difficult road the last few years trying to figure out how to do public comments. Are we doing it the best we can do it? Probably not. So could it be tweaked? Probably yes. I do want to say this though, Hudson it's still small town. My constituents can get a hold of me. They email me, I email them back, they call me. My number is right on the website. So a lot of public comments can be channeled through the representatives. And I think that's kind of where this policy has gone. On the other hand, I've never liked the fact that the public is not allowed to comment on a present agenda item. To me, that just has never made sense. One of the things Woodbury does and has done in the past is they have comment cards that are given out at the beginning of meetings. And so comment cards could be given out on specific issues. And so as we work through things, we could take a certain number of comment cards or a certain time of comment cards. I don't have the best answer. I do think citizens' input is super important in a democracy, whether that's through the representatives or at the actual meeting. But I've also seen abuses of this. I've seen people go way over their time. We've seen lewd gestures and behavior. Again, it's that political discourse and lack of respect. I think that's led to this policy. So can the council do more? Yeah, but you know what? The public has to do more too. The public has to take responsibility for what they're saying at meetings. And so it's a two-way street. So we've got to raise the level of trust. We've got to raise the level of discourse and find a way to make public comments work a little better at council meetings.
Thank you. And Joy?
Thank you. I do recognize, as Paul was saying, there's been a lot of challenges. It's been a difficult several years, and there was a time period where people were commenting by Zoom. And I personally felt that led to a great decline in the dialogue. I think people said things that were inappropriate and maybe a little offensive over Zoom, that because they might not have said in person, though there have been some challenging and difficult times in person as well. I understand, and I really applaud the mayor and the council's decision to limit the comments to Hudson residents. Many people love Hudson, they feel a part of Hudson, but they don't actually live in Hudson. Yet the city council is charged with spending the tax dollars of the residents and making these decisions. I would make an exception to that, however, that I think it would be a good idea to make an avenue for business owners to come and speak. I know if a business owner has a proposal, a zoning request, a licensing requirement, when they come before the city council, of course, they're on the agenda, they're welcome to be there. But they do play a significant role in our community, and I think we should be partnering with those business people. And so I think perhaps an opportunity to maybe contact the city administrator ahead of time to say, I'd like to speak tonight. I don't live in Hudson, but that would be cleared. Some organizations, as Paul mentioned, have you sign a card first to indicate who you are and where you live. And again, that just helps. The mayor runs that portion of the meeting and is very welcoming to people, allows people to speak, no matter what their comments might be. He tries to encourage that. And the difficulty is that the client, or excuse me, the residents are invited to speak. And a lot of times they want a response from the council members, but they're not allowed to respond. So that leads to kind of a stilted interaction. I think we can work on improving it. I would be open to new ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul and Joy, for answering our questions. Just a reminder that all of these questions tonight will be answered by all of our participants and will be available on our website, the Chamber website, and on our social media as well for the Chamber. At this time, we have 2 candidates that are running unopposed. And as a Chamber, we felt it was important to give them adequate time as well. We're not going to go through all the questions, but I'd like to start with our representative running for District 2, Bill Alms. In 2007, Bill moved to Hudson with his wife, Bonnie, and his son, Everett. He owns and operates a small video production business and recently moved to a space in the St. Croix Business Park. Bill has represented District 2 in the city of Hudson since 2015, when he was elected in a special election in the fall of that year. He first became interested in serving the community and his neighbors after spending time in Washington, D.C. advocating for rare diseases, in part because of his son has a rare syndrome. His interest in serving the city at that time was not focused on any one issue. The general interest in representing his district from a nonpartisan standpoint is the same today as it was in 2015. Bill serves on the Joint Fire Board, EMS Oversight, Public Safety, and Finance Committee. He and his family enjoy cooking, traveling, and spending time with family and friends. Bill, knowing that we have some time constraints this evening, what I'm going to ask is please give us a 2-minute opening statement in regards to who you are and why you're running. And then also, what are your top 3 priorities and your vision for Hudson moving forward? He's muted. There you go.
Okay, can you hear me?
You can.
Excellent. Okay, so first of all, I just wanted to thank again Chris Cost, Mary Claire, Chamber members for their involvement. As you mentioned, Chris, we've been here since 2007, started serving in 2015, and I think, you know, as I'm looking at another run at it in 2022 here, I'm kind of rooted in the same thing. I don't have one specific issue that I'm running on. It's just more of a desire to represent the community, my neighbors. A little bit more about what I've been involved with. I belong to a church here in Hudson, Bethel Lutheran Church, and so I do quite a bit of activities with them. I also started, and I don't know that we've met recently, but the Hudson area COVID task force soon after COVID started, you know, and that was bringing together a lot of different stakeholders within the community, be it business, nonprofit, healthcare. And so I guess that's where I would start with the priorities for the next 2 years for me. One thing that we talked about in public safety, in our public safety committee, was we invited some county folks because we were talking a little bit about mental health within the city of Hudson, right? Is there a way, you know, we know that mental health is a crisis. I think we saw that even more so with COVID, people being kind of locked in their homes, so to speak, right? Less social interaction. So we started the conversation around how could we help as a community, you know, checking in on our neighbors a little bit more, and how can we sort of stave off some of these high incidents of mental health. And so, you know, it goes back a little bit, for me, it goes back to starting the Hudson area COVID task force. You know, I have this belief that, you know, the days of relying on government or relying on private sector business for, you know, siloed things, I think there's a way that we can start having the synergy between government, private sector business, and nonprofits to really talk about some of the challenges that we're being faced as a community. And so beyond that, I guess, you know, other things that I'm looking at is walkable community, making sure that we're a walkable, healthy community, taking a look at transportation. And as we look at infrastructure, not only making sure that our infrastructure is there, but also doing it in a means of beautification that really welcomes the visitor. We do a great job downtown. How can we do that great of a job on the hill? So I guess I'll leave it with that. I know it's kind of all over the place, but.
Well, you did exactly what we needed to do, is kind of sum up the questions together. And like I said, we'll look forward to your answers to all these questions as well. And we'll make those available to all those that are on the call, as well as our chamber members.
Perfect.
We also have another candidate that is running unopposed, and this is in District 4. Mike Kennedy has lived in Hudson for over 20 years with his wife and 3 children, and enjoys everything the city has to offer to the community. Over the course of this career, he has had the opportunity to own and operate 2 businesses. Additionally, Mike has played an active role as a volunteer in the community through his involvement with various organizations, including Hudson Boosters, Hudson Hockey Association, serving as the past director at large for Wisconsin with the St. Croix River Association, serving as the current vice chairman for the Hudson Park Board, and serving as the current vice president of the St. Croix Marina, Inc. Mike, welcome. And as we did with Bill, please give us a little bit of introduction about yourself, what your priorities will be for your term, if and when elected, as well as your vision for the Hudson community. Is he muted?
There we go. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. Thank you.
All right, great. Well, thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. And I will just give you a little background on myself. Like you mentioned, I'm running for District 4. So going to be a kind of a new district that's going to magically appear April 5th. As a brief introduction, I was born and raised in St. Paul. I went to St. John's University, graduated there with a bachelor's in economics. And I've been in the apparel business ever since. I currently own a manufacturer's rep company that's based in Hudson, and have been doing that my whole life. Just so you kind of know where I'm coming from, I first was introduced to Hudson by the St. Croix River. I was in my 20s. I bought an old leaky boat and came to Hudson a lot and enjoyed the shop. I kept it at in the Hudson Marina here, and really got to know the restaurants, a few of the bars, the shops, and really felt the appreciation of the community and the warm reception. And my family and I spent every minute here on weekends, and thought, why would we not live in this town? We fell in love with it, and about 22 years ago, we built a house in Red Cedar Canyon that we still live in. I'm married. My wife's Sarah Kennedy. We're raised 3 boys that have gone through EP Rock, Hudson Middle School, and Hudson High School. My oldest son, Charlie's in the Navy. Sam is a senior at Stout. And my stepson, Chase, is currently a sophomore at high school in Hudson here. I was raised to kind of step up when your skills and leadership or time are needed. And I really felt that with this new drawing of the boundaries of these districts, that I didn't want to just assume someone was going to step up and it'll all get taken care of. So that's kind of why I did that. I've been an active volunteer in Hudson, like you mentioned, Chris. And I just think that some of my past experiences of being on different boards, like you mentioned, the River Association, the St. Croix Marina, and also the Park Board. Specifically, the Park Board has really given me insight on how the city works. Everything's related to everything, right? You can't just make a decision about one thing and that's in a bubble. From the cost of it to the impact to different people's thoughts on that. I also know that in volunteering and my work, a lot of it is writing contracts or negotiating with different people, taking care of employees. And I really think that as the city evolves, it's kind of my job to do what I can to represent District 4, not just my vision, but everyone's there, and kind of keep this evolving properly to be the great place that I discovered 25 years ago. Your question about priorities. Of course, being an outsider right now, a lot of the priorities that I see are from my time, being at city council meetings and some of the other meetings about the bridges and things like that. Obviously, I hear infrastructure, roads, bridges, things like that. There is a balance I want to strike with, controlled growth, keeping our old downtown Hudson, the beautiful place it is, and the parks. But also we have to be open to growth, and doing that smartly and wisely, and not just growing to grow, but bringing in, things like solar, things like electric cars. Those are going to be on our list someday, that seem way out there right now, but are actually, within grasp. So, and again, my love of being on the park board, the riverfront development, and all the other parks too. We really do work hard, making sure that no matter where you live in Hudson, there's green space, there's place for your kids to play, there's places to walk. That's really going to be a priority of mine.
Thanks, Mike. And we look forward to your answers to the questions as well. So everybody, it's 7:32, and we ask that you give us just a few more minutes. We appreciate you joining us this evening, but we'd like to go back up to where we started and to our two races that have multiple candidates. And we'd like to give first our mayoral candidates 2 minutes for closing comments of why they should be elected for the position. We'll start with Liz. 2 minutes, closing comments. She's muted. Mary Claire, Liz is muted.
Yeah, yes, I've asked her to unmute.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I just got that. So, okay. So why I should be elected mayor. Well, I'm running for mayor because, as I stated, I do love this city. I love to interact with people. I love to bring people together. I love to communicate. I love to collaborate. And I'm running for mayor because I really feel like we just need a change in the atmosphere, especially the political atmosphere. My youngest son is going to vote in his first election, and I just feel sheepish and apologetic to a lot of these young kids who are coming into their first experience with democracy, because it really isn't what it used to be. And the pendulum will always swing, and people need to understand that you can roll your sleeves up and do the work no matter who wins. And in our city, in every city, the office of mayor is supposed to be nonpartisan, but it hasn't really felt that way to me the whole time I've lived here, which has been about 23 years. So I really feel like it's important to be nonpartisan, to meet in the middle, to sort of visualize a future where we believe in government again, to revitalize our government again in our city, and hopefully on a larger basis with some of the young people being influenced by that, and to realize just a different future, a brighter future where things feel more positive and not as divisive. And this city is an amazing city. It is bright. It has a great future, and we need to just realize the full potential with good leadership.
Thank you, Liz. And Rich, 2 minutes, closing comments.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. Thank you, Mary Claire. I really appreciate you guys doing this, and thanks, Liz, for participating as well. I'm running for re-election for a variety of reasons. First of all, my mother taught me way back when I was very young that one of the most noble endeavors in life is to serve one's community. I took that to heart, and I have served in many capacities in the two communities I've lived in, St. Paul and now Hudson. And this is the highest honor, the highest office that you could serve your community. It's been a true honor and a true pleasure to be able to have served my community for the last 6 years. clearly, when you listen to the candidates that are all running this year, you can hear the passion that they have for our city, the same passion that I have, and there's good reason why people are running. I too believe that this is a nonpartisan race, a nonpartisan position, and I have said that from day one when I first started running, and I seem to be running against partisans the whole time. But I share that. This should be a nonpartisan position, and I've been trying to keep it that way myself. But I think that ultimately this comes down to a few things. It comes down to leadership, achievement, and vision. And over the past 6 years, I believe that I have provided leadership for a variety of issues for the city. The very first thing, it was a trial by fire. I got tossed into the EMS situation immediately. And it took 2 years, of solid leadership and negotiating with other council members. And we finally got a great EMS service. There are some other things that are happening. The library, Paul, you brought that up as far as the shifting the burden of taxation. And that's something that I've been working on for about the last 6 months now. I've been negotiating with our municipal partners, with the county. And I brought that initiative forward, actually. And I think that that's a wise thing to do. I'm very, very adamant about, very passionate about our library and what it means to our community. So, I mean, there again, I think this comes down to leadership, comes down to achievement. And I would hope that I have earned people's support and earned people's vote to be reelected mayor for another term.
Thank you, Rich. Shifting to District 3, the two candidates that are running, closing comments. We'll start with Joy, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to serve Hudson, and I'd like to represent all the residents of District 3. I am out knocking on doors. As Paul mentioned, it's a little cold, but people are surprised to see you, but they welcome you. And if they have time, give a little input on their thoughts. That's one thing I always approach is, what's on your mind? What are you concerned about? And that's how I feel I would represent the district. While we do need to think about the entire city, I also want to really focus on the needs of the people that live in my neighborhood, because it's different depending on where you live in town. I think we need to balance what I would call our needs and our wants. That's a classic junior achievement lesson for, I think it's 3rd grade, where we decide, what do we really want versus what can we afford and what do we need? And that certainly fits in with the infrastructure and the wish lists for the park. I mean, we would like to do lots with our money, but we need to spend our tax dollars wisely. And I'm very committed to that. Part of it is the other costs are going up around us. Costs of heating our home, filling our car up, taking care of our family is going up quite a bit in the last year. And so that's going to affect the people that live in town. When I talk about tax dollars, also, I want to make it clear that I'm not just talking about people who own their own home. People who rent their home are also paying tax dollars because their landlord is passing those taxes on to them, increases their cost of renting. So all of us have a commitment to that of what's being spent. It's not just the homeowners that I'm thinking of and representing. We need to be cognizant of that, of our senior citizens. It's great if their property value has increased, but if their property taxes have gotten higher than they can afford, then it makes it difficult for them. And many of them have lived here for many years. I want to keep Hudson affordable by helping to keep taxes affordable in Hudson. Thanking all of you here tonight for joining in on this event. I think it's been very helpful and a great dialogue. Thanks to the Chamber, Mary Claire, and Chris. Thank you so much for leading our discussion tonight. Appreciate all of your time.
Thank you, Joy. And Paul, 2 minutes, closing comments.
Thanks. Well, first, again, I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring this candidate forum. I also want to again thank Joy for filing to run in District 3. I do want to clarify just a couple things from tonight. I want to make sure voters have the record straight. So I know that many people are concerned about some of the recent crimes taking place in Hudson the last couple of months. I just want to emphasize that my record is very solid when it comes to public safety. I have voted for the new fire hall, and I have voted for every single request the police department has put before us on the city council in all my 4 years on the city council. So I've been a huge advocate of public safety. I also feel I need to say that as far as fiscal responsibility, I've made excellent decisions and I am responsible for your tax dollars. and I will make the best decisions for in that as well. For the past 6 weeks, I've been door knocking to meet and listen to the concerns of the residents in the new District 3. Here's a summary of what I've heard. Many want street upgrades, a safe community, a balance between our small town charm and services for a growing community. Some want their children to enjoy good parks, receive a quality education. Some have mentioned the desire for an additional grocery store, and those on fixed incomes are concerned about taxes. While they've expressed different priorities, they have also told me that they are concerned about the process and how we are doing government in Hudson. Many have expressed desires for the city council to be more respectful and work cooperatively to meet the needs of our community. They want the city council to avoid the partisan extremes that have dominated our national politics. Our citizens yearn for leadership based on respect, reason, good faith, and compromise to move our city forward with the best interests of our people at heart. And I believe that what they are seeking matches the approach I've taken on the city council these past 4 years. I love Hudson. I want to do what is right for Hudson and our community. We have many challenges ahead, and I am ready to meet those challenges and continue to serve the people of District 3. I believe that together we can make a difference and that our future is bright. So I am respectfully asking for your vote on April 5th. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. On behalf of myself, Mary Claire, Chamber President, and her incredible team, we want to thank you for participating in this event. We want to thank those that listened, and we look forward to a successful election on April 5th. Remember to get out and vote. And most of all, remember, we all heart Hudson. Have a good night, everyone.